All right, so this is how to actually find your purpose. Now, this is a topic that I've wanted to hit for a long time. This is a topic I've really wanted to speak on back before I even had my first channel, when I knew eventually I would make a second channel. But before I even started doing YouTube, this was a topic I've known that I wanted to hit. Because, especially if you've been in the self improvement space, they tend to talk a lot about this, this abstract concept of like working on your purpose, being on your purpose, like finding your purpose and all these types of things. But your purpose is, like I said, it's very much an abstract concept, and it's so hyper specific to each individual that it's kind of, there's no like one set way to for each person to find their purpose. It's definitely like each person has to be on their own path to find their own purpose. But there's definitely like ways to actually find it. And of course, as I always do on this channel, I'm going to be pulling from a lot of examples in my own personal life in order to bring it full circle, in order for you to understand how to actually find your purpose. Now, the way I would describe someone's purpose is kind of like a motivating factor for them to get up each and every morning, even on days where maybe they're not feeling good, or they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or they're just like not feeling it. They're not in a good mood at all. Like, in spite of that, you still go forward with your day because you know that you're working towards a greater goal. You're working towards achieving just an end goal. You're working towards a destination. That's the way I would describe a purpose. So like, technically, I would say that your purpose. Yeah, the wind is going crazy right now. Yo, I just had to make sure my fucking camera wouldn't fall. But yeah, that's just there's a big tropical storm hitting New York, so I want to make sure I get this video out before it downpours for the rest of the week. So you can tell this is quite literally not the calm before the storm, but right before a storm hits. So I want to get this video out. But your purpose, it doesn't even have to be a big, grandiose, making a huge impact, having this legacy. It doesn't have to be something that big. Some people's purpose is just to wake up and make enough money to where they have their own roof over their head and to where they could provide for their family, and like they're content with that fact. They don't have to go for something bigger, something more grandiose, something that will have them remembered on a big scale worldwide. Some people do not have greater ambitions in that way. And if you don't have greater ambitions in that type of way, then that's perfectly fine. But other people want their name to ring out in history. Their purpose, or even like their purpose is not even like what they want to do, because there's a YouTuber out there. I think his name is just Angelo, literally just Angelo. But he speaks on how some people, their purpose isn't even actually their purpose. Their purpose is merely a vehicle in order to attain status, in order to attain notoriety, in order to get legacy and to be remembered and to be known on a worldwide big scale, to where people can come up to them and say, yo, like you're this person or you're that person. So for some people, their purpose necessarily doesn't even matter. They're using their purpose as a vehicle in order to attain these bigger things, which is an interesting concept. But like I said, your purpose, it doesn't have to be a big grandiose thing. There's a lot of people who their purpose is merely to just live a good life, and to live a comfortable life, and to be financially stable, and to have a family, and their legacy is their family. Their legacy is continuing their bloodline. So they're not even wanting to achieve that big goal. But regardless if your purpose is just to provide for your family and just to live a good life, or if your purpose is to go for these bigger ambitions, this video is applicable in both situations. Now, I want to pull an example from one of my best friends who found his purpose and is living a great life. Um, so we're gonna call him Jake. So my boy Jake, I've known him for a long time. I've known him since middle school, and we've had a lot of great times together. Some of the first times I smoked weed and really just went out on my own, like unsupervised, times without my parents, just literally being a teen, hanging out, you know, all that type of kid stuff was with him. So we have a lot of good memories together. And he was someone who, we smoked weed, we would drink underage, we would just have a good time, right? But once we graduated high school, he started to get serious about what he wanted to do because, a lot of people around my area come from immigrant households. So they're either immigrants themselves or they're first generation American. And if you come from an immigrant household, you know that there is an immense sense of pressure, because your parents sacrificed everything to come over to America. So in their eyes, they sacrificed so much and did the work that most people don't want to do in order to carry it forward so that their sons, their daughters could live a beautiful life in America, could really go after what they want to do, could really just make something of themselves. So, of course, a lot of my friends felt that pressure, and my dad's an immigrant, but my mother isn't. So I didn't really feel that same pressure. I'm second gen on my mom's side and first generation on my dad's side. So I didn't necessarily feel that pressure, but a lot of my friends, a lot of people I went to school with felt that pressure too. So he was very calculated, and I don't want to say Machiavellian, but he was very much calculated on what he would do. So once he got to college, he's a year older than me. He just naturally majored in biology because he said, I've always liked science. It's a natural interest of mine. So fuck it, I'm going to go after this. And I think he completed like a semester or two under that biology major. And he was just thinking, I guess, I don't want to say thinking to himself, but I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if he was just shown what jobs he would be able to get with that major or whatever the case may be, but he basically figured out that, getting a degree in biology wouldn't really pay off to where he could live a good life and live a comfortable life. But he knew he had an interest in science. He knew he had an interest in, most people either gravitate towards the arts like English or history and more social sciences, or people tend to gravitate towards the actual sciences like the literal science, science and math. And it's really like the way your brain works. And a lot of this has to do, like finding a purpose is really just introspection. So giving the example of like where my best friend, how he found his purpose, he really looked inwards in order to find that. So the point being, he saw that biology wouldn't really pay off. Like he wouldn't really be able to get like a really good job or a job that he would enjoy, or simultaneously like just get a job that pays well to where he could be financially stable and comfortable, right? So then he decided, you know what, I'm going to be a nurse because with nursing, I still get to flex that muscle of learning about science, learning about these things that I'm naturally inclined to be into. But simultaneously, I know things have kind of changed now because people, like friends of mine now who like just graduated college, they say that now the nursing field it's a little harder to get a job. But when he first graduated, I want to say like 5-6 years ago, he nursing was in higher demand. So he knew that he would be able to get a job off rip immediately after graduating. So, he really, we would still hang out and like smoke weed and do all that. And it's crazy because I don't even smoke weed anymore. Like that's how long ago this was. But we would still hang out and smoke weed, but he would be locked in. He'd be studying because in order to get into nursing school, you have to have damn near like a perfect GPA because it is that competitive. So, he really dialed in. He did really good in all of his classes, had a high GPA to the point that he got into nursing school. And then, first hurdle, then it's the next hurdle. And then he completed nursing school, the practicals. He was just dialed in, so locked in because, especially like nursing and, being a doctor, anything in the medical field, it's life and death. Any mistake you make could change the trajectory of what's the word I'm looking for? Of your patient. It could change the trajectory of your patient's life. Like this is how important being in the medical field is. So he really had to dial in. And, he graduated and now he's a nurse. And he's been a nurse for a handful of years now. And it's a job that he really enjoys. And the schedule is something that he really enjoys too, because in the medical field in general, but nursing in particular, the way his job setup is, he'll work like, I want to say three 12-hour shifts in a row, like overnights, like 7 to 7, either 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or vice versa, or 4 days on. He'll either work 4 days on, 3 days off, or 3 days on, 4 days off. And to me, it's like, damn, I don't even know if I could do that. Like, yo, he's strong as hell. But with him, it's a schedule that he likes. You know, he likes the fast paced energy of being a nurse and always being on your feet and always, like, it's a job where you never get bored, where you're never looking at your clock being like, I hope 20 minutes pass by. And then it's literally 5 minutes that pass by. Like, it's not a job in that way at all. But yeah, so he found a job he enjoys and he makes really good money and he's living, that's his purpose. He's not looking for anything grandiose or big or like legacy or to be remembered. Like, he just is living a comfortable life. He's just living a good life and he's working a job that he's actually immersed in, that he actually cares about. So, that's just one instance of someone in my personal life finding their purpose and it not being this like big picture thing. But, him just making good money, living a good life, and getting to spend money on all of his Pokemon cards and shit like that. Because I don't know when you're going to be watching this, but at the time of recording, the Pokemon cards thing is a big fad. Like the same way like Supreme and Bape Hype Beast were like a big thing 10 years ago. There's like Hype Beast with Pokemon shit. It's kind of crazy. But I want to give another example. So another example is one of my other friends. Let's call him Paul. So Paul is someone who also his family are immigrants. His family came here from El Salvador, so he's first generation American. Either first generation or he was born there and came over when he was very little. Whatever the case may be, regardless, he comes from an immigrant household. And he is someone very early on. His parents were, working, blue collar jobs, just, making enough money to provide and doing their thing and sacrificing and working really hard to pay it forward for the next generation, right? And in the midst of that, his mom had a side hustle where she would cook and she would sell food. And especially like Salvadorian food, like, they have a bunch of crazy sandwiches, pupusas, stuff like that. So his mother had the side hustle where she would cook. And he would help her cook, during that time. Like, it's crazy because even like the same way, like when I was younger, like my mom, it was the same way where like I would help her cook and stuff like that. So he would help his mom cook for the side hustles. And, it's the same thing. You get out of high school and you're figuring out your next move and you're figuring out what you want to do. And eventually he decided like, yeah, I want to be a chef, and eventually he went to culinary school and he really applied himself and he graduated from that and he was doing it. He was like a real chef for like, I want to say 5-6 years, and it was to the point that he even had a side hustle too, where like he would kind of do what his mom did, where he would like, especially now it's kind of easier to have a side hustle in cooking because especially if you have a lot of followers, like just like your homies and stuff, you could literally post like, hey, I'm going to be selling, pork bao buns this week, or I'm going to be selling like these street Mexican tacos, or I'm going to be selling smash burgers on this day at this time. Like, yo, come pull up. And I used to buy food off him. So that's why I'm able to list off all the fucking items that he would sell. So, yeah, he went to culinary school. He did that. And then he had the side hustle and everything like that. But eventually he decided it wasn't for him, because especially like if you're in culinary school or if you're working in the culinary field, like I've worked in food in the past, like not just like in restaurants, like not just at like fast food places. Like I worked in actual restaurants and it is a grind. Let me tell you, it is a grind. Like prep, it is fast paced, it is chaotic, when you're really deep in the shits, when it's like rush hour peak, that shit is crazy, you know what I mean? So we're not as close as we used to be, but eventually he decided that it wasn't for him. And then he joined, I believe, the Air Force, either the Air Force or the Navy. But his story really does exemplify, like, how to find your purpose, which is, like, there's no shortcuts. There's really no shortcuts at all if you're genuinely wanting to find what you want to do with your life and what you love. and you really want to find your purpose, there's no shortcuts at all. Straight up, you're just gonna have to try stuff. You're just gonna have to try stuff and see what works and what doesn't, and what you resonate with and what you don't. And you're gonna try stuff, and you're gonna think that for like 6 months to a year, like, yeah, this is what I do, but this is what I want to do. But eventually, you'll probably find out like, I don't want to do this. This isn't really my thing like I thought it would be. Or maybe you fall out of love with your purpose, or whatever the case may be. It is like quite literally peeling back layers of an onion within yourself, of course. That's a crazy analogy, but it's true. Like, there's no shortcuts to finding your purpose. Finding your purpose, I started off with those two examples because those two examples really do show that, like, both of my friends, they looked inwards and like decided or figured out within themselves what they're naturally inclined to do, what they naturally like, and they maneuvered and they found their way. And in the case of my other friend, the second story, he eventually found out that this isn't what he wants to do for the rest of his life. And you might very well think you found your purpose for like a year or two, or maybe like 6 months, and then you just decide it's not for you. There's really no shortcuts. You're gonna have to look inward. You're definitely gonna have to journal. You're definitely gonna have to. I mean, I love meditating, but you're definitely gonna have to meditate on what you could see yourself doing long term, and just try stuff. Just do it. Just go out there and experience it. Because I know for me, I definitely like just tried stuff and did it, and then decided it wasn't for me, and just like really just reflected upon myself. Because for me, I tried to go the school route because naturally I do love history. So I went to school for history, and eventually I dropped out because, I was really good at writing these detailed fucking 20-page research papers on history. But like, I don't know. I guess I'm the type of person that like, I have to really resonate with what I'm doing. So like, there was a lot of just like, I don't know. In school, I feel like there's just a lot of like bullshit busy work, especially early on, to where it's like it has nothing to do with your major, and you want to be doing something else, but you have to go through it, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't. And before I went to school, my background is music. My first channel is just video essays about music, and eventually I'm gonna venture out into other things, more social stuff. But for the most part, my background is music, and before that, before I even graduated high school, I was in a band I was in a band basically all my life because me and my brothers, we all love music and we all wanted to start bands and do music and pursue it. So I basically have been doing music in some capacity my whole life. But by the time 8th grade, 9th grade rolled around, like I was in a metal band, I was in a deathcore band. Like my band started making real moves to where like we were opening for bands like, if you're into deathcore, like Suicide Silence, Oceano, Lorna Shore. Before they got to this big crazy level, like my band was opening for a lot of these bands, and I always knew that like music was my passion. Music is what I love to do. And then like history was on some like, yeah, I love history too, but like I gotta put my big boy pants on and really just find a career, find something sustainable, find something to put me in a position to where I'm doing good in my life. You know what I mean? But it's crazy because I found my way to YouTube because I dropped out, and I was just kind of just trying stuff, figuring it out. And it's crazy because I'm into hip hop too, so I started rapping during that time. And then but not like, like I'm a rapper, like I'm into like very artsy, like very heady type of stuff. So like the stuff that's more underground, more jazzy, more just like thoughtful in a way. So I was making music like that, but then I was like, nah, this is low key just a pipe dream. So then I was just keeping my head down, working full time, just doing my thing, saving, stacking bread, just really trying stuff and figuring out my next move. And then my band from high school, eventually one of my best friends, he started a new band, and it was their first show. And then one of my other boys, he was like just really like applying pressure, like, yo, like Iridian, which was my first band, should like do a reunion show. Like, y'all should play this show. And then eventually we did. And then we had some fill-in members because a lot of the members of that band, they moved out of state. So we ended up playing this reunion show, and that got the ball rolling for what would become Liberate, like the band that I'm in currently. And it's crazy because like with music, I was like, okay, like music is like a pipe dream to where it's like, you don't think you could really make it. There's like, it's oversaturated. There's so many people doing it, and whatever the case may be, it's just, you know, it's not likely, or like the numbers or whatever. With Liberate, I was just merely doing it for the passion, merely doing it because I love it, and like now it's like the ball just keeps rolling in the sense of like we're just like moving up and up and upwards, and we have like this crazy momentum, and we have a really good reputation on the Northeast, and like things are just going really, really good. And with that, it's just following my passion and not doing it because of money, not doing it because I want to like be in this poppin' band and make all these moves and all that type of stuff, but doing it just because it's like I love playing live, because really there's no feeling like it. But then I found my way towards YouTube. I want to say like before Liberate was really a thing, because it's funny because I was watching this self-improvement YouTuber, and he went on a live stream, and like he does general self-improvement stuff, but he was talking about specifically about starting a YouTube channel. And then he was asking all these brainstorm questions, and it was to the point that like when he was asking all these brainstorm questions, like what would be your niche, like what would you make videos about, like I had an answer for literally everything. And that's what had me like, damn, like, nah, I could really do this. So that's when I got the ball rolling with YouTube. And of course, I had to save a lot of money in order to get like the camera, the MacBook, the lights, all the little things together. But with YouTube, it's hella lucrative. It really is. Because especially, these types of videos, like, it's kind of harder, like, for the algorithm to catch it. Like, it's kind of unpredictable. But when you're making like videos to where it's like you're not the subject, but it's on like a subject that's popular, or that like has a lot of engagement, or that people are naturally into, then it tends to get a lot more views. So like eventually I started doing YouTube, and like I said, going to school for history, like I was always good at writing essays. I was always good at writing and like making these well thought out, very extensive essays, which goes into video essays. So now I write these scripts that are like 20, 30 pages long, which is like videos that are like 2-3 hours long, like an hour and a half long, 50 minutes long. And it's like, to me, it really doesn't feel like work, because I'm speaking on subjects that I care about. I'm speaking on subjects that resonate with me, and I'm speaking on subjects that I've already gathered knowledge on years and years and years ago. So of course I do the whole outline thing, especially too, like college did a lot for me. Like I know how to really organize, and to have an outline, to, hit the talking points, to write notes, to gather information, to cite my sources. Like I'm essentially writing college level essays about random topics like drill music, or rapper Capital Steez who passed away, or about how moshing evolved. You know what I mean? So that's how I ended up finding my purpose, because like whatever I do, it's music. You know what I mean? Like music is something that it caught me early. It caught me early as hell, and it was to the point that I remember talking to my older brother years and years and years ago, and I was just talking to him about like, we were just getting real existential with it, where we were talking about purpose and legacy and just all these like, big picture stuff. And I told him, I was like, yo, like we're really lucky because we found our thing early. And a lot of people don't even have a thing. Or if they do have a thing, like they find it way later in life. And I'm like, bro, like we're really lucky. Like just a real wholesome moment to where I was really grateful about just the things that make me in a lot of regards, because music is it, you know what I mean? And I guess that gets to another point to where it's like when finding your purpose, especially if you want to do like YouTube or content creation or stuff like that, you just have to really make sure that like this is what you want to do, in the sense that like I remember seeing a tweet a handful of years ago where it's like, yo, everybody feels like they have to monetize their hobbies. Like you don't have to monetize your hobbies, or you don't have to monetize every hobby. Because for me, like talking about music, speaking on music, doing music, writing songs, because I do vocals, so I like. It's funny because the rapping I did like 5 6 years ago ended up carrying over to the stuff that I write in the hardcore band, and even like I'm doing hip hop shit, like not for the fame of the cloud, just doing it because I love making music, right? Hold on, there was a point of me saying that. What was the point? But yeah, like for me, like I could monetize music in the sense of like I could work on this and it would not be draining. Like it is not draining for me to work on a video essay, to do research about like a random obscure rapper, to do research on topics that I really care about, to write these like, especially with the video that I'm working on now that's probably going to drop mid to late August, like I would breeze through 1,000 words like in like an hour, in like an hour and a half. And it's like you can only really do that when you're truly passionate about what you're doing. So my point being is that like you don't have to monetize all your hobbies, or like if you do want to do content creation, you just have to make sure that like yeah, like I'm okay with like not just doing this passively, but like really applying myself. Because to me, like writing about music, recording videos, like speaking, especially like this stuff, like it's easy to me. It's easy to me in the sense of like it's something that I'm really passionate about. So like even when I'm not recording videos, I'll like drop lore with my friends about random musicians, or like stuff like shoegaze. Like I was telling my friends, like we were at a bonfire years and years. I keep on saying years and years ago, but like a handful of years ago, I was at a bonfire with a handful of my friends, and I was talking to them about the origins of shoegaze, and like how like shoegaze wasn't given, like the name shoegaze wasn't given. It wasn't a scene itself. Like the name was given by journalists, kind of like in a way it was like a backhanded compliment. They were like mocking them in the sense that these musicians had all these crazy effects on their guitars and stuff like that. So when they were playing, they weren't really engaging with the crowd, but they were more just looking at their feet, making sure that they were hitting like the right pedal to have the right effect at the right part. So I remember dropping that, and they were just like, "Damn, that's crazy! I never knew that." And especially now, like bands like Cocteau Twins or like and My Bloody Valentine are really big because of TikTok. But the point being is that you know I have such a rich love and knowledge of music that to me it doesn't even feel like work. So, but other hobbies that I have like fitness, I just love to do it. Like I can't picture myself being a fitness influencer. It's something that I'm passionate about, something that I love. But like, can I go the extra mile to like record my gym sessions and talk about hypertrophy and all these different things in the right form? It's like, no, I don't really feel like doing all that. Like I'd rather just, you know, lock in, get into that flow state, not talk to anybody, and fucking put in that work and just go in, go in and get out. You know what I mean? Like with working out, it's something that I love, but can I go the extra mile to turn it into a career? Like, nah, you know what I mean? And maybe I could do personal training, but like, can I record my workouts and go crazy like that? It's just, man, that's not for me. And even like reading and stuff, like, when I read, I'm like, I don't really read fiction, but I'm gonna start like diving into novels and stuff like that. But when I read to learn, and I read like psychology books, philosophy books, theology, like more esoteric knowledge and stuff like that. Would I go the extra mile to like make content to be a part of book talk and really like go into like the depths and the layers of these books? It's like, definitely one of my videos is gonna be like these 5 books or these 10 books changed the way I perceive the world. Like I'm definitely gonna make a video about that on this channel. But like, can I dedicate like a whole page to just talking about books? It's like, I love reading, but like not to that extent. So literally, to tie it all back together, it's like to find your purpose, you just have to try stuff, or you just have to journal and look inward. A lot of us, like, with the 2 examples that I gave and myself, like we found our things early. Because even now, like the second friend I was talking about, he still does the side hustle to where like he'll make fried Oreos and like post it on Instagram and make like mad money just selling it to his friends and selling it to people he knows around the neighborhood and stuff like that. So like the point being the point being is that yeah, you just have to look inwards because in all the examples that I gave, like we were lucky enough to find our thing early. But some people, and this isn't a knock, this isn't shade, this is just a fact of life. Some people grow up in an environment to where they're not motivated to try new things, where their parents don't encourage them to dive off a diving board, to just try stuff, to do sports, to play. You know, some people don't grow up in a rich environment in that way. Because even with me, it's like I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but like my parents, they like really did help me to cultivate my own personality, my own distinct likes, dislikes, hobbies, stuff like that. They quite frankly they were just encouraging, and I grew up very adventurous, just trying stuff and just doing stuff. You know what I mean? But some people aren't lucky enough to grow up in that type of environment. They grow up in an environment to where it's very repressive. Maybe they grow up in a household that's more conservative, more traditional, to where like, oh no, you can't do that because of X, Y, and Z, because it's demonic or because it doesn't follow the traditions. Or maybe they grow up in an environment to where they're hyper religious, to where it's like you have to dress a certain way and you have to do certain things, and like as a man or as a woman you're expected certain things. You have to follow this path that's laid out for you and there's no questioning it. So that's why it's like I don't look down on people who maybe they're my age, maybe they're 27 years old and they don't know what their thing is. It's like, but it gets to a point, you know what I mean? To where it's like at the end of the day, it's your life, you know? It's your life and you have to make decisions for yourself, you know? Especially as you get older, like all that peer pressure bullshit starts to go away because it's a marathon. We're all on different paths. So it's like some people might land a good job straight after college, 22, 23 years old. But there's some people, maybe they don't want to go the traditional path and maybe they're still figuring things out. And by the time they hit their late 20s and early 30s, then they fucking shoot up like a fucking rocket. You know what I mean? So yeah, like that's the thing too, to where it's like it's not linear and it's not as simple as people make it out to be. Like some people just they go the route that's planned out for them or that like society expects of them, and they're completely okay with that, and they live a good life, and they live a life to where they're comfortable, they make money, and they have a family, and everything's good. But there's some people who they want to take a path that's not traditional, or they have bigger aspirations, or they just want to just really be out there and really be adventurous. Like, you know, with me, of course I want kids, of course I want to settle down, but I want to truly live my life before I get to that point. But the point being is that don't feel discouraged if like you feel like you're older and you don't exactly know what your thing is because you've just been following the path that was laid out for you. It's a marathon. Don't feel discouraged. You know, if people find their thing young, or if you're like older and you don't know what your thing is. And there's no skipping steps too. Like that's a major thing. So that was my thing too, where it's like you're gonna have to try stuff. You're gonna have to just put yourself out there and see what sticks and see what resonates with you, or see what doesn't, or just see what you like and you don't like. You're just gonna have to put yourself out there and reflect on these things. And with me, journaling just helps because it helps to organize your thoughts. Because especially like I meditate, but in spite of me meditating, it's like sometimes my thoughts be going crazy. So it's like with journaling, it's a good thing to really organize and lay out your thoughts and lay out how you feel and lay out what you've been trying, what you like, what you don't like. You know what I'm saying? Because, like I said, when I was younger, especially when I first stopped going to school, I thought I was going to be this poppin' rapper and this, that, and the third. And then, like, years down the line, like, I ended up picking up rapping again. And now I'm just making stuff for the love of the craft, making stuff because I can, and quite frankly, because I'm good at it. You know, I'm not doing this to be some poppin' rapper to get on or to really just like, make all the riches and all the money. Like, nah, I've always loved underground music and underground hip hop. So to me, I'm just gonna make that. And also, energy is a big thing too, because you'll find like when you're more detached of an outcome, things end up working out. Because Liberate is a perfect example. Like Liberate just ended up happening, and then like the wheels were set in motion to where it's like my older brother, who's the drummer of our band, he was like, "Yo, you really want to do this?" And I had to sit there and think about it, because being in a band, it does take a lot of dedication, especially if you're playing outside of your immediate local scene. So I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, because I'm good at it, because I love playing live, and like now things are going really well to the point that like, especially from the Northeast, and hell, we played like the whole East Coast in May, like down to Florida, and we had to drive all the way back up to New York, which that was hell. But yeah, the point being is that with Liberate, I was just on some let's see where things go, and then it ended up really coming together in a meaningful way. So I guess that's really it, just try stuff, put yourself out there, see what sticks, see what you resonate with, see what doesn't, and just really reflect inward. You really do have to remove your ego from a lot of these things, because I talked about it in the gym is the perfect metaphor for life video, but it's like when building a skill, you're not going to be good initially. It takes some time. There's a gray area period where you're putting in all the effort to be good at a skill, but you're not quite there yet. It does take time to get to that point. So don't feel discouraged if you think you found your purpose and you're putting in all this effort on your purpose, but you're not seeing the results yet. It's like you quite literally just have to thug it out. You just have to keep going and persist, and then before you know it, you're getting really good at that skill. It is like working out, which is funny because that's what I made the video on. But yeah, that's how to find your purpose. How to find your purpose is just trying stuff, looking inward, understanding what you're naturally inclined to do, what you naturally like. And if you don't know what you like or what you're into and what your hobbies are, you just have to try stuff and see what lands and see what sticks and what doesn't. There's no shortcuts. It does take time, and time is going to go by regardless. So you could utilize that time finding your purpose, trying stuff, going on adventures, or you could utilize that time just doing the same thing you've been doing. And then 5 years is going to go by, and then you're going to be in the same position that you were in. Or you could utilize that time trying stuff, doing stuff, discovering who you are as a person, and then 5 years later, you'll see that you found your purpose. Or hey, maybe you're in a completely different position in life than you were before. Or you'll just be a more actualized version of yourself. So yeah, I think I'm going to cut it at that, because if not, I'm going to keep on rambling and repeating same points. So yeah, that is how to find your purpose. No bullshit, no abstract concepts. This is the applicable way to find your purpose. And yeah, check out my first channel, like, comment, subscribe, and all that. And I'll see you on the next one. I'm going to get out of here. Peace.